Hey friends, as promised, I'm back to finish this wings series with our next video, which is about the wings of Enneagram 8. Now this is, I think, one of the more distinctive differences between wings and an Enneagram type. This one to me is a little easier to recognize, both experientially and motivationally, but I do want to disclaim just at the beginning that 8 is also one of the types that I think draws the most attention, which also means it draws the most mistyping, specifically among men. Now that's something that we can address in a different video. If you're interested in talking about the misidentification of 8, just hang in there, because that is a series I'm going to address immediately following this wings video, or the wings series. So the main differences when we look at Enneagram 8 with a 7 wing and Enneagram 8 with a 9 wing has a lot to do with the fact that 8-9 is a double instinctive or double body, double gut type. And 8-7 is a gut type plus a head type. So we see some very different energy between the two of them. An 8 with a 7 wing, as I've mentioned in former videos, if you've watched any of the ones I've talked about 7, has at its core, just as Enneagram 8 with a 9 wing does, that challenger perspective and motivation, which says, I need to dominate my environment in order to survive. No one's looking out for me but me. Get out of my way. And this very stoic, forward-moving energy of Enneagram 8. But when we have the 7 wing, we marry that with this bouncy energy of 7, because 7 is so motivated by, I don't want to miss out on anything. I want to do all of the things, and so I want to see all of the things and do all of the things and not be stuck in one place. And I don't want anything to hold me down. So we have this mix there between that grounded body, move forward, and that bouncy, high energy, high mental energy of 7. Now that tends to make for, as some people would refer to Enneagram 8-7 as the lightweight or the maverick. And all that means is that from the 8s with 7 wings that I know and have experienced, it brings about this energy, whether they're engaging with you through conflict or whether they're engaging with you amiably, a sort of jab energy, which says, I'm going to challenge you, but in this high mental energy way that 8 with a 9 wing really differs from. When we look at 8 with a 9 wing, the energy of the stoic, moving forward, challenging 8 is married more with this that earthy, more withdrawn energy of 9. And so when we look at 8 with a 9 wing, we see more of what some people would call the heavyweight or the bear, which is less jabbing and more, a little more patient. You can poke an Enneagram 8 with a 9 wing a little bit, but after you do a few times, there is going to be an eruption. I like to think of it as a volcano, and just really an obliteration in one fell swoop. That's why we look at them more as the heavyweight and 8 with a 7 wing more as the lightweight. They both achieve this domination of their environment, or sort of sadistic control of the things around them in order to survive. But it's done with that slightly different energy. Now, I also want to say 8 with a 9 wing is probably going to tend to be slightly more of a, because it's a double gut type, more of a philosophical or intuitive 8. The 8 with a 7 wing is going to be more of a mentally intellectual 8 that looks at things more through that lens of puzzle solving and mental gymnastics. And that is why you have that quicker energy that comes along with that. Those are the really main experiential differences, I would say, that make me even say these two wings are pretty different. I've definitely encountered more 8s with 7 wings than 8s with 9 wings. I believe that they're more populous in the environment, as much as 8 is one of the least populous types that there are. Because, I mean, let's think about it. If there were like a a ton of 8s running around, like the earth would be on fire. It's just not statistically reasonable, or nor is it what we see when we look at the stats. And some of you know I've been keeping a spreadsheet for a long time on where people that I engage with as I go through life fall, and I have seen that to be true. 8 is one of the least populous types, but I do think that 8 with a 9 wing is slightly less. Now, another alternative to that could be maybe they're equally populous, but I want to say 8 with a 9 wing really doesn't want to talk about it as much as an 8 with a 7 wing would. In general, it's a challenge to find 8s unless they are very realized and very health focused and very integrating, who want to talk about their inner stuff, because that's vulnerability. And that's kind of one of the scariest things for an 8, is that letting down of the icy wall and allowing people in. But it's also a huge sign of growth for an 8 to be considering vulnerability and to be considering the use of their leadership gifts and the use of their power in order to liberate others, and in order to increase their own vulnerability and their ability to engage in servant leadership. Now, I do want to say, this is one of the cool things I think about when we look at the wings of 8 that's very apparent, is this truth that runs throughout the Enneagram, and that is that the Enneagram does not caricaturize people. When we look at the Enneagram 8 on the surface, to those who have only studied it a little bit, it might look like 8's a caricature. When we look at the varieties that 8 comes in, an 8 with a 7 wing or an 8 with a 9 wing, both 7 and 9 bring to this very stoic, hard, stony, sadistic figure a compliant side. And that rounds out this person into making them a realistic human. Any 8s that you may know in real life, or yourself, if you're an 8, if you're watching this, I think it's important to acknowledge that. We see that with each Enneagram type, that these wing varieties, and when we get into instinctual variation, they color this person more of a human and less of a caricature. So, whether that compliant energy that we see in both 7 and 9 comes in that bouncy, sort of fun-loving, energetic, can't focus on anything because they're afraid of pain side of compliance, or whether it comes from that easygoing, introspective, philosophical, slower to anger, slower to recognize their own anger side of 8. Both of those give us these realistic pictures of challengers, and not this overly comic book-ized version of 8. If you have been watching any of my other videos, you know probably one of my biggest pet peeves, and the reason that I even started writing about Enneagram and making these videos is because in real life, when I engage with people over Enneagram and over the typing process and things like that, people are so eager to caricaturize not only other people, but themselves. And it's something that I really feel like Enneagram invites us to step away from when we really look at the complexity of a human. That's why I really discourage tests too. That's why I really feel like taking an Enneagram test is like, let's take this quiz, and then smack ourselves with a label, as I've said many times before, because it doesn't ask us to explore the complexity of our humanity the same way that studying the Enneagram does. So if you're struggling with that, if you don't know what type you are, please keep that in mind. I would say test and see, because taking a test, wearing a label you don't even understand, is that really going to help you grow? No. But studying the Enneagram, that's what really helps. And I find that a lot of times it helps us to compare and contrast when we're learning these things. That's why I make videos about this wing versus this wing, or this type versus this type, misidentification-wise, because the more you study those differences, the more you really start to see the human differences between these types that make them realistic people. And you really start to recognize them in your life and in places you go and people you interact with. So those are the main differences between Enneagram with a 7 wing, or Enneagram 8 with a 7 wing, and 8 with a 9 wing. If you have additional questions for me, as always, please chime in the comments or send me an email at the email address at the end of this video. As a last thought, if you want a question that you have or a dilemma with Enneagram that you're having answered in a quicker fashion, probably a really good way to address that is to engage with me on a consultation level. I offer consultations privately for type identification, for coaching in regards to how to use your Enneagram type to grow and to recognize your stress patterns, and a plethora of other things. Yeah, feel free to comment or to send me an email, and I'll be sure to get back to it. Thanks, as always, for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you next time for the Wings of 9 video.